Hi, I'm Rabbi Nahum Ward-Lev. I live here in Santa Fe, actually right near Andrew and Jen, which is and Brooke, which is a great pleasure. And I've been a rabbi here in Santa Fe, New Mexico since 1993. I was formerly the rabbi of Temple Beth Shalom here in Santa Fe.
And how has nature and just being out in creation been helpful to you during this pandemic, and what have you done?
Oh my, Andrew, it's been everything to me. I've gone out as often as I possibly can, whether you see me walking around the block or walking up in the mountains. Just the connection to nature has been a connection to God's blessing. And in such a time of being cut off and separated and feeling all of the problems that are going on, that sense of connection to God's creativity and to the vitality of life, really to the core vitality of life, and all my kin. I mean, these are all my good neighbors, all my kin, the juniper and the pinon and all of the cactus are around and everything. It's just an opportunity to feel the flow of life and connection to life and God's presence in our lives, even in tough times. It's really re-energized me.
Mm. So tell me a little bit more about that sense of interconnectedness with creation and kind of what you see and feel and what you've experienced.
Oh, gee, well, I think of creation as being God's presence.
Mm.
I mean, it's one of the ways that God is present, that the divine is in everything that there is. And so by being connected to what is and by feeling the wonder and the amazement at what we find in creation, it's an opportunity just to connect to God and connect to Source and connect to who I'm called to be and who God wants me to be.
So we were speaking a little bit earlier about the significance of this Jewish New Year, and I was hoping you could kind of talk a little bit more about what that means and kind of some of the theological and spiritual background of that and what that means for creation and a sense of justice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in the Bible, in the book of Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy, there's a practice called Shmita. Shmita means release. It's often translated as sabbatical. That once every 7 years, the Israelites were commanded that they were to release their possession of the land. They were to let the land rest. In fact, in one of the texts it says that the land is to get a Sabbath. And in later texts, if you don't give the land a Sabbath every 7 years, it will take its Sabbath and you will be driven off of the land.
Hmm.
And so every 7 years, the land in the Bible is supposed to be allowed to go fallow. Not only that, but anyone who wanted to could pick and harvest whatever grew naturally from the land.
Hmm.
You couldn't use any fences or gates to keep people or even wild animals off from the land. So it was really a concern for the sacredness of the land, the vitality, caring for the land. Also, it says specifically that the needy and the poor are to be able to gather from your land. So concern for the needy. And it's part of a cycle of sevens in the Bible. We have every 7 days is a Sabbath, a day of rest. Every 7 years is the Shmita, the release, the sabbatical. And after 49 years, 7 sevens, the Jubilee, when the land goes back to the one who originally held it. So it's really an institution that's concerned for the redistribution of resources, so there's an adequate distribution of resources throughout the entire society. There aren't any people who are so wealthy that some people are so poor, but there's an adequate redistribution. So that's Shmita. Later in Deuteronomy, they add to land going fallow that all debts are to be canceled. All debts are to be canceled. Imagine that. Again, it's a concern for a redistribution of resources so that we get much more equity in our society. A similar institution in our society that every 7 years the slave was to be given after 6 years freedom too. So the concern that we don't be exploiting the land and we don't be exploiting the people and that we live in a way that's harmonious in our community and in the land. So this year, starting with the new year, Rosh Hashanah, is a Shmita year. The year 5782 on the Jewish calendar is a Shmita year. There's much energy in the Jewish world to think about, we're not farmers, most of us, anymore. What does Shmita mean to us? What practices can we do that honor the land, that honor the needy, and that work towards cancellation of debts and work towards a redistribution of resources? And also to give rest. the really importance of not only letting the land rest, but giving people adequate rest to rejuvenate.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank
Awesome.
you, Andrew.